FAB-Racing, the official BSB partner series, and on the road to MotoGP.
Welcome to round 5 of the FAB-Racing British Mini Bikes Championship 2019 here from Lydd in Kent. Liam Hodgins and we've got Chris McCarthy here alongside me this weekend, and we've got plenty of race action out on circuit from a very wet but summery Kent circuit. Now the Pit Bike 140 is on track at the moment, but if you're joining us on Facebook on the Motorsport radio stream or FAB-Racing, welcome, or on Twitter at Motorsport Radio and at FAB-Racing, or if you're joining us for the first time on motorsport.tv, that's a great affiliation that we have with them. So Chris, we've got the Pit Bike 140s on track at the moment. As we can see, the track conditions aren't too great at the moment. Some puddles out on track, some spots of rain, and as the riders come through the first chicane in the circuit, what can we expect? How tricky are the conditions out there at the moment?
Well, that's a question I was going to ask you as an ex-rider. You come to the south coast of England, and first race day, unfortunately, looks a little bit like this. We're not too far from the holiday park, Camber Sands, and I'll tell you what, people's weekends away have certainly been ruined by the weather there. But it's going to be very, very tricky. I think we're expected to have a dry day tomorrow, so this is going to give us a nice mix. Tested in the wet today, and then again in the dry tomorrow. It's going to be a real adjustment for the riders. I don't think they've not had any practice in the wet so far this weekend. They're quite literally being thrown into these conditions, and we've not had much wet running so far this season as far as I can recall. So it's a nice change, I think, in the championship. It's as a rider, you're going to face wet conditions, throughout your careers. So let's see who is able to go.
Oh, bit of a moment there.
Yeah, that's what we're going to see a lot of this weekend. We know that there is a few riders that perhaps maybe down the championship order that are very, very good in the wet. So we could expect some surprise results this weekend. And the championship standings, as we get into the second half of the season now, those gaps in the championships are going to feel even larger as we go into the second half. But one thing I was going to ask you, as an ex-rider, was the wet conditions something you enjoyed? What kind of challenges are the riders going to face today?
They're going to find a big challenge in this course. As we spoke to Brandon Pearl at the lunch break there, the circuit's very greasy in some parts on the circuit, but as an ex-rider, I loved the wet. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Great fun on circuit. I would always produce my best races in the wet conditions, but I could never, ever quite do the business in the dry. So it wasn't too great, but as we can see, the riders are staying on track at the moment and giving us the best that they can do. So as the riders went through turns number 1 and 2, there's a couple of puddles on the circuit, so fingers crossed you can avoid that. And Chris, it can be a bit horrendous if you hit a puddle, especially on one of these Pit Bike 140 bikes, but considering it's not a mini motorbike, then this should be fairly okay.
Well, we've come to the Lydd kart circuit. That's the circuit we are at today. Quite a challenging circuit, definitely very fast in certain areas. We're running 2 different layouts today, so the larger bikes are going to be not using the 2 middle hairpins on the back straight, but the smaller bikes will be using those. So for the larger bikes, mostly it's just straights and chicanes. That sounds quite straightforward, but trust me, it really isn't. As for the smaller bikes, it's lots of 3 chicanes, 1 big hairpin down the back, and then 2 very small congested hairpins once we get halfway down the back straight. So this is the first corner, right, left, right. Then we go into another chicane, right, left, right, and then we get into the quite long hairpin round the back, and then I think it gets particularly tricky once we come out of that hairpin towards the back of the circuit. We go for a flat-out left-hander. It might not be today, though. And then it is a double apex right-hander in through a long left-hander into quite a tight right-hander where we saw a bit of a wobble earlier. And then for the smaller bikes, it's 2 hairpins and then a double apex long right-hander to finish us off. Fortunately, we've got a little bit of a problem. That looks like the 129.
That's Robert Cox.
Me.
So that looks like number 29, Robert Cox.
The 29.
Yeah, so he looks like he's had a bit of an issue. Fingers crossed he hasn't gone down. But I would like to draw your attention to the top of the standings. Harvey Claridge, 2 seconds ahead of your championship leader, Jamie King. Now, Claridge has been a little bit unfortunate so far this season. He's not managed to pick up a race win. He's been leading races. He's been pushing hard. But the British Talent Cup rider is showing them the way around this Lydd racecourse, especially in the wet. So this is a set of conditions that could really suit him and his bike, because it levels the playing field, especially in motorbikes in the moto team and of course the Pit Bike 140 class. So it gives someone like Harvey Claridge, who's not possibly got as much power as the rest of the bikes, to get up there and to possibly push for the race win. So as we can see, the session's over for the Pit Bike 140 and moto team qualifying, and it's Harvey Claridge at the top of the standings with an impressive 48 seconds, 0.456, 2 seconds exactly over Jamie King. Then we had Cox in third, so he had a bit of a horrible end to the session there, but he still managed to pick up third spot in the grid, ahead of Will Howarth. So Simon Clowes on the moto team bike, those two showing there that they've got some pace in the moto teams. We had Will Howarth picking up a race win for the moto team class last time out at Tattershall, the first time that has happened all season. John Whittaker is next up in 6th. Former championship leader Ben Bailey is in 7th spot. Then we've got Callum Wybrow in 8th, ahead of Pew Andrews rounding at the top 10, Gilbert in 11th, and we've got Kinnaird inside the top 12, 7.3 seconds off of Harvey Claridge's time at the top of the standings. Now, there's been some weather reports that the rain might ease off as we get towards the end of the day, but looking at the skies, Chris, I don't think that's going to happen.
And certainly not at the moment. So Harvey Claridge, the Pit Bike 140 leader there. Will Howarth, your moto team lead rider in that one. That was qualifying 2 for Pit Bike 140's moto team. It'll set the grid for the first race a little bit later on. So to bring you up to speed with the timetable, if you are just tuning in, you haven't really missed much. We had just one qualifying session so far. You do join us actually in the middle of the qualifying 2. So before our lunch break and before our broadcast, we had AC40 rookies, Mini GP 70s, and AC40 Pro have their second qualifying session, which sets the grid for race number 1 later. We've had the first of our broadcasts now, Pit Bike 140 and Moto Team. Next it'll be Junior LC40 Elite, then we'll go into Senior Mini Motos. Mini GP 50 will be after that, and then it will be Extreme 200s and the sidecars to round us off. We are slightly behind timetable here today, so the timetables, if you are looking at those, we are running just a little bit behind at the moment, but we hope to catch up throughout qualifying 2, and we hope to be back on time for 2:50 for race number 1, which will be AC40 rookies. So each class will have 1 race today, and then they'll have 2 tomorrow, and we'll be broadcasting every single race this weekend. So please do stay with us for what is going to be yet another fantastic racing, another fantastic weekend of cool FAB-Racing. This now round number 5. We've got someone off on the grass already as we start the Junior LC40 Elite. And now you're going to see the different layout we are running for the smaller bikes. You'll see it when we get round the other side of the circuit. This is our camera down the far side of the circuit. That's the second chicane you can see, which leads them down to the hairpin down the back of the circuit.
Yes, I would like to point out tomorrow that the weather conditions are looking more favourable towards sunny conditions, dry conditions. So fingers crossed it does ease up. As we said earlier on, that we've not really had much rain in the 2019 Cool FAB-Racing Championship, but we did have a bit of it back at Red Lodge round number 2, only for a part of the Sunday race action. But as we can see, the LC40 Elite class out there on track is Johnny Garness, Charlie Huntingford and Ronnie Harris that have both clocked some times on the board at the moment. And Johnny Garness and Mason Foster come into this round, and I was speaking to Tom Garness yesterday, and he said that Mason Foster and Johnny Garness have worked their way up the junior categories, started off racing against each other, and they've just continued that rivalry on towards the LC40 elite class. So they've been at it hammer and tongs throughout the whole racing career. And even though that Johnny Garness holds a whopping 77-point difference over Mason Foster in the championship, it doesn't look that way in the races because they're both always up the front battling for the race. But it's just Johnny Garness seems to snip it at the very last moment. But once again, we could look to be embroiled in a fantastic battle between Garness and Foster here at Lydd in Kent. So we've got the LC40 Elite class going round. Johnny Garness is the first to set a lap time, a whopping 3.6 seconds faster than Charlie Huntingford in second. Johnny Garness on pole position for the moment. Ronnie Harris slips into second with a 1 minute 4.15 out of Finn Muerte, who's just gone into second on bike number 11. We've got Samuel Munson clocking some lap times, so as they come past the start finish line, it's still Johnny Garness who's finding some grip and speed out there, a lot quicker than his rivals at the moment. 2.7 seconds between himself and Finn Muerte in second, Chris.
Yeah, well, looking back at that championship, the 12 race wins so far have been shared between Garness and Foster. 11 to Garness, though, 1 to Foster. And absolutely dominated this championship by Johnny Garness. When he didn't win, he actually didn't finish on the podium. He was 4th place in the first race of round number 2. Ronnie Harris, 4 podiums for him. Emmanuel Brinton, 4 likewise. 2 for Josh Bannister, 5th in the championship. And then we've got a podium for Clayton Edmonds, Sullivan Malmsey as well, 3 podiums. And then a podium for Josh Bannister, likewise down the championship order, having not competed at every round. So it's some of the younger riders, perhaps some riders who haven't really been racing on a bike for very long. Well, surprise, surprise, it is Garness who is leading in this qualifying session at the moment. Currently 1.6 seconds clear, but most riders having only done 2 or 3 laps, so we won't pay too much attention to that just yet.
Yes, I was out there watching earlier on today, and the infield section of the circuit towards the end of the lap, as we can see the mini motos will be using this weekend, it's very bumpy as they enter the first section of the infield. So the right hand hairpin, it's very tight, very bumpy. You lose a little bit of traction as you get the power down coming out of it. So that's hopefully a corner that won't cause too many issues throughout the weekend. But in the wet, it's always very, very tough to predict what can happen. So we've got Johnny Garness still 1.6 seconds ahead of championship rival Mason Foster on bike number 88. Samuel Munson on bike number 72, 2.6 seconds further back from Garness. Ronnie Harris in 4th, and we've still got Charlie Huntingford in 5th position just there. So we're watching some of the riders come through the very tricky Nadri chicane. Second chicane on the circuit, up towards the back end of the circuit through the hairpin. It's a very banked looking corner there, Chris, so that could be very good for the riders to try and get a good run, power down nice and early, and of course maybe size up a move into the next right-hander as they come over the hill. Now the bike goes very light over there, so it could make the front very, very light indeed.
Yeah, then we come into this left-hander here. And the right is actually a little bit tighter than what it looks when you walk the circuit, which I got to do yesterday afternoon. Once you have a look at it, it's probably not completely flat out on some of the quicker bikes because you've got to get up and down quite quickly through there. So perhaps a small lift for some of the classes. And then we come down to the 2 hairpins, 2 major overtaking opportunities for these guys. I think we're going to see a lot of overtaking through there. The penultimate corner essentially is a very tight hairpin, and I think that's going to be where we come to the last lap where we may see races decided. So conditions are not improving, and we don't really expect them to today. Checking in with the standings, it's still Garness who leads at the moment, the only rider to have dipped below 60 seconds, 59.308. Mason Foster is currently in 2nd place, 0.8 back, and then it's 2.6 seconds back to Samuel Munson. Ronnie Harris is in 4th place at the moment. Cameron Sewell is 5th, Charlie Huntingford 6th, Ruben Bray is in 7th, or at least was, now drops to 8th, having Clayton Edmonds come up to 6th. Cameron Saul goes up to 4th place. Warwick Brady is down in 9th. Finn and Werity rounds out the top 10 at the moment, so there are riders improving out there, but Garness still the only one to have gone sub 60 seconds.
Absolutely. Now we're watching Warwick Brady and Clayton Edmonds make their way around the circuit. You can just notice how many puddles there are, and especially on the inside of the curb, and coming through this tight right hander, splashing through the curb. So fingers crossed that doesn't prove too much of an issue for the riders. Oh, we had Clayton Edmonds just lose the front there as he went through a puddle just before they hit the back straight. So this track here, even though it's very grippy in the wet, as we spoke to some of the riders, there is a lot of standing water which can prove very detrimental for some of the riders. Maybe some of them don't find it too much of an issue. Maybe some of them can't get to grips with it as much. But as you can see, the bikes are shaking through there as we've got Johnny Garness, also Clayton Edmonds, and of course Chloe. There, Johnny Garness sets up. Did he lose it? Something's broken with his bike. So that's Johnny Garness, our championship leader. Did his chain come off, or did his bike just stop? He's trying to stop it. Yeah, so that's him. Started the bike back up. It's barely like anything happened. Stopped it. Started it again, and then away he goes. So only lost a couple of seconds there.
Yep, didn't really need to. Oh, we've got someone down there, unfortunately. So Johnny Garness hitting problems, but almost 1 second clear. I'm not too sure who this is. Is this Clayton Edmonds? That's hit problems.
That looks like Clayton Edmonds, yes. Yeah, you called it right there, Chris.
So Clayton Edmonds, who's down in 6th place, looking to try and break into the top 5, having if he'd been able to find 7/10, then would have done just that. But we're not far from seeing the flag. In fact, the flag is now waving. Johnny Garness has gone through it. Samuel Munson actually did improve, went up to 2nd place there, 8/10 back from Johnny Garness. So that has dropped Mason Foster down to 3rd place. Cameron Saul is 4th place. We are still awaiting Foster to cross the line, so we could see a change to the front row. Saul has crossed the line in 4th place, and there goes Foster. Can't improve though, so Mason Foster will stay 3rd place. Ronnie Harris has dropped to 5th, but is still on the last lap, as is Edmonds and Huntingford in 6th and 7th. Bray will be 8th at best, Werity 9th, Brady will be 10th, and it will be Marshall and Holly Harris in 12th. Josh Bannister only completed 1 lap, so not too sure what happened to Josh in that session, but looks like did 1 slow lap and then came straight back in, so problems for Josh Bannister, unfortunately. Not too sure what happened to Ronnie Harris and Charlie Huntingford. I believe they came in before the checkered flag, but Harris will be 5th and Huntingford 7th. Is this someone on the last lap?
That's Cameron Saul on bike 100 there. Very, very distinguishable person on track. Very cool looking racer. I like Cameron Saul's image that he's got going on at the moment, but he's managed to finish in 4th, which I believe is actually his best qualifying position of the entire season. So brilliant there from Cameron Saul. So the great thing about this rain is that we're starting to see some riders that may be tailing towards the mid-pack towards the end, finding their feet like a duck to water, and they're finding the way up towards the top spots in their session. So, but Johnny Garness, your championship leader, 11 wins out of 12 races, still setting the pace.
Samuel Munson down in 6th in the standings there, so great result for Samuel Munson. But Garness, 11 wins, only been beaten once so far this season. Can he be beaten this weekend? I think that's probably one of the biggest questions. Are we going to get a new winner? We've only had 2 so far in this class, in Garness there and Foster. Munson, no podium so far. Yeah. How good would it be if Samuel Munson was to come and jump straight on the top step and stop what has been a winning streak of, 8 on the bounce for Garness. So fantastic stuff.
Yeah, Garness is definitely the man to beat so far in the LC40 Elites, but as we said earlier on, Mason Foster has been able to challenge him all season, but still when it comes down to that last lap battle, Garness just edges it ever so slightly. But Munson, he's shown some great pace there today, even though he's 8/10 off of Garness, but we can see him get a podium, maybe even a race win, or who knows, we might even get someone like Cameron Saul finding their feet and managing to make their way onto the podium for the first time this season.
Well, now we're seeing Senior Mini Motos out for qualifying 2. Following this, it'll be Mini GP50, then Extreme 200s. Sidecars will round off qualifying for us. So Senior Mini Motos now on track. One thing, when the rain fell throughout the night and when we arrived at the track this morning, one thing, the main talk around the paddock was who is quick in the wet, who loves the wet conditions, and there are riders out there down in the standings that do, and those are the riders that could prove some big upsets this weekend. It's what we want to see. We want to see lots of variety within our podium finishes. We want to see drama. We want to see fantastic racing. We're going to provide that to you this afternoon here from Lydd. So stay with us for round 5 of Cool FAB-Racing British Mini Bikes Championship.
As we can see,
fantastic afternoon, and we've got it live all day tomorrow as well when we have our second and third races, Lee.
Yes, Josh Birkin making his way through the chicane, still the leader of the session. But as I say, that Bernie Hook on bike 0 takes over the top spot of the qualifying session. Now, an interesting wee stat about Bernie Hook's bike is that it's made here in Lydd. So Bernie Hook's Mini Moto is based here in Lydd, made here in Lydd, and it's made by Championship regular Andy Whedon. So he managed to build it, and Bernie Hook won with it in Spain a few weeks ago. So he took it to Spain. I think it'd be a lot of different conditions compared to what we're getting here in Lydd, but fantastic performance. Also, Samuel Munson in the LC40 Elites is racing on one. Josh Bannister as well in the LC40 Elites, and Archie Gibbs in the rookies class, the AC40 rookies, who's our championship leader. So the bike, which is called Evo Mini Moto, so that is just showing the way around at the moment. And of course, Josh Bannister has the original prototype. So there's only 14 made, but Josh Bannister has the first ever one that was made. So it's a bike that's trying to push its way further up, but it's pretty cool that it's actually made here, right here in Lydd, only a couple of miles down the road.
Home race, essentially. That's what we'll say. It is the home race for all of those riders. Well, in terms of the championship, Bernie Hook is at the top of the standings, 36 points clear from Matt Birkin, 4 wins and a podium for Bernie Hook. And then we have Matt Birkin as well, who stood on the top step 4 times as well, as has Will Howarth. So 4 wins apiece between those 3 riders. They have shared all the victory so far. Will Howarth 64 points back from Bernie Hook.
Yes, Bernie Hook taking a grip of the championship. Matt Birkin, as you said, 36 points back. Now he sort of lost the control of the championship over the last few rounds. He managed to win 2 of the races from the opening round of the championship back at Clandau. So far back in March in Wales there. So he's won 4 races so far this season. But Will Howarth and Bernie Hook seem to be the ones that are just pushing forward with the championship. And Will Howarth, who missed out on the round number 1 at Clandau in the Senior Mini Motos, is trailing behind only by 64 points. So if he made it to that round, he might not be as far back as we might have presumed. But looking back at the track conditions, there's still a lot of puddles, as we can see. The bike number 81 of Craig Ashall making his way through the first chicane up towards the second chicane, which is a little bit tighter, a little bit slower, so you've got to be a little bit easier on the brakes as you tilt it into the right, then the left. Further behind him, it looks like we might have Josh Birkin, Simon Huntingford, of course, on bike number 47 in 3rd spot as well. But rider heading down towards the final turn, very nice corner, very fast as well. Banks ever so slightly so you can get a good run out of it, which is quite good. It might just ease the rainwater down towards the apex of the corner and into the grass itself. But as we can see, there's a lot of puddles, especially on the apexes of corners, so the riders have got to be very careful to tiptoe themselves through the puddle and not to crash out, because if you crash out in the wet, you can recover, but at the same time it can destroy the bike massively.
So Josh Birkin leading the way at the moment, 101.766 is the time to beat. 8 tenths back, it is then Bernie Hook, Simon